My next patron question is from Caitlin, who wants to know my stance on a particular studio's recent box office performance. It's something about your new box office report card video because I've just realized that you're always somewhat negative towards Paramount. It could potentially be because they usually have bad years at the box office sometimes, but even for years I see were okay, like 2025, if you ask me, the hits were big enough to make up for losses. To be honest, they kind of struggled, but it's not as bad as in 2017. I do think 2025 was better than most people make it out to be. I want you to compare with 1986, which was a great year. Okay, before I talk about my feelings towards Paramount and if I'm too harsh on them, let's take a quick look at their 2025 again. I still stand by a lot of what I said in my box office report card, and that they did not have a good year. Like I said in that video, Regretting You was nicely profitable, and I said January Legs had a chance of helping Search for SquarePants get to a solid number, which it did. The Naked Gun also did alright, but the director, Kiefer Schaffer, recently revealed he has not gotten any interest from Paramount about a sequel several months after the film's release, so it's possible the studio heads themselves were underwhelmed with how it performed. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning was so absurdly expensive, caused by a number of issues, that they definitely did not make their money back on it. If it had a budget closer to most of the other entries in the series, it would be a cause for celebration, but sadly not the case. Smurfs underwhelmed, as did Roofman and Novocaine, while The Running Man and Better Man outright flopped. So unfortunately, I don't think whatever Paramount made on Regretting You and Search for SquarePants were enough to offset the losses they had. Now, am I too harsh on Paramount, at least when it comes to the last 10 years? Again, I feel I'm somewhat fair in acknowledging when they've had successes. In my video about Brad Gray's time running Paramount, while I mentioned the low points studio had under his tenure, I also made a point of mentioning the successful films he did greenlight. However, there were just too many losses, which is why Viacom ended up firing him. The thing is, I do find myself rooting for all the major Hollywood studios, because when all of them succeed, that means more movies get made. Hence why I don't root for flops. I remember really looking forward to the opening of A Quiet Place, because that seemed like the kind of movie that had potential to do really well. And it did end up performing exceptionally well and launching a successful franchise. 2018 as a whole was actually okay for them, although 2019 was a step back. I do think if the pandemic never happened and Paramount did not have to delay projects to the following year or send certain movies to streaming, they probably would have had a decent 2020. Sonic the Hedgehog was doing strong numbers before theaters had to be shut down. Top Gun Maverick was all set to open in the summer of 2020 before the pandemic happened, and in an alternate universe, I think that would have been just as successful in 2020 as it was in 2022. I think the SpongeBob movies Sponge on the Run, Love and Monsters, and The Trial of the Chicago 7 would have also done decently in theaters in a normal world. If you watch my box office report card for 2022, you see how ecstatic I was about how Paramount did that year. They delivered one hit after another as they released films that really resonated with audiences, led by Top Gun Maverick, of course, but also Sonic the Hedgehog 2, The Lost City, Scream 5, Smile, and Jackass Forever. I don't have any particular bias towards one studio or another because I want them all to do well. I'm sure some people assume I'm kinder towards Disney, but I did not shy away from talking about how underwhelming their 2023 was, or that 2025 was a mixed bag with a handful of expensive flops. Now, Caitlin also wanted me to compare Paramount in 2025 with how they did in 1986. Well, that was absolutely a fantastic year for them, probably even one of their best. The biggest hit that year was Top Gun, which was also the highest-grossing movie of 1986. The studio also scored sizable and nicely profitable hits with Crocodile Dundee, Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home, The Golden Child, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Children of Lesser God, and Pretty in Pink. Even Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, despite being the lowest-grossing film in the series up to that time, made money back in its small budget. You look at that list of successes compared to what the studio released last year, it's like night and day. Just to highlight the difference, of the 5 1986 releases to gross over $100 million at the domestic box office, 3 of them were Paramount. 20 movies released in 2025 reached that number, and only 1 was Paramount, which was Mission Impossible. Now, looking ahead, I do think Paramount has a promising 2026, although they are mostly relying on proven franchises. I think Scream 7, Scary Movie 6, Jackass 5, and Paw Patrol: The Dino Movie will be profitable, much like the previous films in those series. They also have the Billie Eilish concert movie, and if audiences respond to Street Fighter, that one has potential. They have a few films I'm less certain of. One is a Christmas Carol adaptation starring Johnny Depp. Depp is no longer the draw he used to be, and this movie would have to do something interesting to stand out from the gazillion other versions of Christmas Carol. There's also the Angry Birds Movie 3. The second movie saw a significant drop, and I feel like the popularity of Angry Birds has dwindled since its heyday. But maybe both of these movies could surprise, and Paramount will have nothing but hits in 2026. That's something I'm hoping for, and what I think that parent companies should concentrate on rather than wasting time and resources attempting to acquire Warner Brothers. While Paramount has certainly not been devoid of hits, many of the films have struggled to turn a profit, and that's why they've spent a lot of years over the past decade below other major studios in the annual rankings. But here's hoping things do pick up for them, and the new people running things can find projects that will attract plenty of ticket buyers. Thank you for your question, Caitlin.